The first thing that you will need to do is break your big piece of clay into smaller pieces. Make sure you think about how many colors you are going to want and break it into enough pieces to make those colors. In my case, I want 4 colors, so I'm breaking mine into 4 pieces that are about the same size. Next, I will roll a ball between my hands. Notice that I keep my hands flat and keep the clay between my palms. Next, I'm going to squish the ball into a cookie. I try and squish it between my fingers instead of against the table so that it doesn't get stuck to the table. Next, I will lay it down on the table and I will color it using whatever color I would like my clay to become. In this case, I will use purple. Sometimes we call this step of dyeing the clay frosting the cookie because it looks like you are frosting the piece that you had just flattened down into a cookie. Next, we will fold our cookie into a taco with the color on the inside. Then we will squish it into a ball and continue to squish it until the color spreads throughout the clay. If you want to make your clay a little bit darker, you can flatten it out into a cookie again and add more marker. It is important to note that you will not get this clay to be completely dark colors. It will always have a little bit of a pastel look to it. Repeat these steps until you have colored all of the pieces of clay. Now that you have your 4 pieces of clay ready to go, the next thing we will do is decide what color will be the base of our project. In my case, I chose red. The first thing I'm going to do is roll it into a ball. I put it between the palms of my hand and I roll my hand in a circle to make a ball shape. Next, we will pinch it into a cookie. Notice how I pinch it between my fingers instead of against the table. We don't want our project to get stuck to the table, so always pinch it between your fingers instead of squishing it down to the table. I pinch it until it's nice and thin and round in a circle shape. Next, we will set this piece aside and begin working on adding lines and shapes for our project. The first thing that I will do is roll something called a coil. I put the piece of clay between my hands and I roll them straight back and forth until I get a worm-like shape. Your coil might end up being a little longer than you need, and if it is, you can simply push it down and then pinch off the end. Next, I will work with green to make some triangle shapes. I pinch off a little bit of my green first, then roll it into a ball between my hands. Once I have a ball shape, I pinch it flat like a cookie, and then turn it sideways and pinch it so that it will be pointy, like a triangle. I turn it sideways and do the same thing again. Follow the same steps to make more triangles for my project. Again, when you are working on making your triangle, flatten it and pinch it between your fingers to get the right shape. Next, I will make some small circles out of my orange clay. I begin by breaking off a small piece and rolling it in between my hands to make a small ball. Then I squish it down to the base. Repeat these steps until you have finished a pattern on one side of your project. Next, we will flip our project over. You can choose to make a pattern on the back of it or to do something else. It is up to you to decide. On the back of mine, I am going to make a line that's kind of twisted, almost like a peppermint. First, I break off a piece of one color and roll it between my hands until I get that long worm-like coil. Next, I repeat that step with 2 other pieces of different colors of clay. I set them all down next to each other, and now I will roll them all into one between my hands. You can see that I now have all 3 colors combined onto one longer coil. Next, I hold my coil between my 2 fingers and begin to twist. You will see that it starts to look kind of like a peppermint. I twist as much as I want, and then, if I want to, I can even roll it a little bit more to make it even more smooth. Next, I will put the end of my coil down in the middle of my base. I twist it around to get kind of a swirl design. You might notice that you can see a little bit of green, blue, and orange in the swirl because we made the twisted coil. The last thing we will do is squish our project between our hands to make sure everything sticks together. If you want, when you are finished, you can bring your project to a teacher and have a hole poked in it. Your teacher will help you find the best place to get the hole poked. Remember, this job is a teacher job. You do not have to have a hole if you don't want to, but it could be a good place to put a string through to hang your project up. Last, a teacher will use a permanent marker to add your name to one of the sides of your project.